I'm good. I'm good. I mean, the country's facing lots of problems, and I'm frustrated that we're not moving toward answers as quickly as we really need to. But there's only so much you can do when the president refuses to lead on these issues, and when the majority in the Senate won't bring bills to the floor that really deal with either private sector job creation in a positive way or cutting spending, and those are the two big domestic priorities right now. How do you create more private sector jobs, and how do you reduce the spending at the federal government level? I
want to go back to those issues in just a moment, but let me take you to something that happened today. Did you get to see these pictures of Osama bin Laden?
I did. They asked Pete. They offered to show those to members of the Intelligence Committee and the Armed Services Committee, and I did go out there today to look at them. And my view of this last week, which was my view of it even this morning, was that I really had all the information I needed. But if I became convinced that it was important to the people I work for that somebody working for them saw those pictures, I was going to go look at them. And the more questions we got about that, the more I said, well, I better go out there and look at those pictures. And they were as conclusive as they were conclusive, but so in my view was the DNA evidence, the SEALs. I've talked to the SEALs commanders at two different levels, and Osama bin Laden's family and Al Qaeda say he's dead, and based on everything I know, including the pictures I saw today, he's definitely dead. And I think the decisions made about burying him at an unknown destination at sea, but with proper respect for his religion, I think all those things were done right. I have plenty of disagreements with the president, and this doesn't happen to be one of them.
I agree with you completely. I don't think there's any politics that needs to be played on this. I don't know that. I sort of was in the camp that felt that the pictures could or at least maybe it would be okay with me if they were released. Do you think they're too graphic to be released? And I'm not even saying just for I believe he's dead. I don't know if you don't believe he's dead. I don't know what you can do. I don't even think a picture's going to help in that sense.
Well, that's right. I think almost anybody could Photoshop a picture to make it look like somebody who was dead or other bad things that happened to him. And frankly, once the so-called pictures were out, people could graphically make them look even much worse than they do. I don't think it serves any particular purpose, and I think the doubters would still doubt. So I'm supportive. Did not feel strongly on the photo thing, but I don't know what good purpose is served there. We've got plenty of things we ought to be focusing on right now, and one of the things we benefited from by going in after Osama bin Laden with the Great SEAL team was that we got all the stuff he had with him. And I've been critical of what I thought has been the overuse by this administration of the Predator, because you generally do kill the target, but you don't get any information from the target. You don't get any information from people who were with them, nor do you get anything they had with them. And we have literally, I don't know how long it will take to go through all the information, the material that Osama bin Laden had. We don't know what's in it yet, Mark, and I think maybe more importantly, Al Qaeda doesn't know what's in it. And so I suspect this has created lots of disruption and movement on the part of our terrorist enemies that were part of the bin Laden network, and anything that disrupts them is good for our safety.
Senator Roy Blunt is with me this afternoon. What did you think about the grilling by the oil company executives, or of the oil company executives last week on Capitol Hill?
Well, I just think it's where the other side goes every time they don't want to talk about the real issues. The president does this all the time, talking about tax breaks for oil companies. You change the tax treatment for oil companies, and you just encourage them to drill for oil somewhere besides the United States. It seems to me that the simplest formula for more American jobs is more American energy. We use just about as much electricity in bad economic times as we do in good. We use just about as much gasoline. Why not produce more of that here? And that initially means more oil, more natural gas, more of the energy products we have. And you don't do that by making our tax treatment discouraging rather than encouraging. And by the way, if these companies are what people on the other side say they are, they're going to pass, and even if they're not, they're going to pass this cost along to taxpayers. So it's an interesting way to raise taxes on a guy that may not be paying any income taxes, but is filling his car, his truck up every week to drive from DeSoto to St. Louis to work, or from Springfield to Cassville to work, or wherever they may be going. They're buying that gas to do that, and I just think first of all, and even if you're totally successful, you would save about 1 week's borrowing in the first 10 years of this taxing of the oil companies. So let's talk about the real problem, which is we're borrowing $4 billion a day, and we better start doing something about it.
Well, Tim Geithner informed Congress today that we've officially reached the $14.3 trillion borrowing limit. So where do you see this debt ceiling debate going?
Well, my view of this, and I've talked to the White House about this specifically and directly, is that if this is such an important thing that we raise the debt ceiling, the president's the leader of the country. He'd better figure out how to get it done, and to get the votes of almost any Republican in the Senate. I think you're going to have significant behavioral change as part of this discussion, and not just say we're going to change our ways, but things like a balanced budget amendment or absolute unavoidable controls on spending. I'm not going to vote to raise the debt limit if all we're going to do is continue to do what we've been doing, because that's unacceptable, and it's ultimately it weakens the economy more than any other thing you can do is to continue this behavior.
But you don't disagree that it needs to be raised because we could default. You're saying there have to be conditions.
That's right. That's right. I think that there have to be conditions, and again, I don't even disagree with the president's premise that in the short term it's important to raise the debt limit. But I do disagree with his premise that, and because of that, you should just raise the debt limit and it can't be conditional on anything else. And that's just not reasonable. It's not going to happen. And if the president can figure out how to do it without me and without a whole lot of other people, I guess he can do whatever he wants to do. But if he can't figure out how to do it without bipartisan cooperation, there's going to have to be significant changes of behavior, I think, before the debt limit can be raised, and I know before I'd ever vote to raise it.
Senator, I had an interesting conversation with a business owner here in St. Louis over the weekend. It's probably not unlike some that you have when you're back in the state, someone who's successful, wants to even expand, hesitant to do that because he's unsure of what the future holds, and a lot of it relates to the policies coming out of the White House.
Well, that's right. And how many times on your program have you and I talked about the importance of certainty at all levels, and their failure to understand that if you keep talking about things that would double your utility bill and raise your taxes and increase more rules and regulations, people don't put money in the middle of the table just to see how quick they can lose it. They put money in the middle of the table with the belief that they're going to get a reward back if that risk turns out to be that all their calculations are just right. And if a whole lot of your calculations are unnecessary because the government is making you worry about things that the government does have some control over, like not going in the direction of cap and trade and doubling your utility bills, and now we're talking about the same tax increases that we were talking about exactly 2 years ago today. The White House just can't seem to get out of the rut of not doing the right things to encourage private sector job creation. If you don't encourage risk, people don't take risk, and if they don't take risk, they don't create opportunity.
Hey, there's a lot of buzz today about these comments that Newt Gingrich made on Meet the Press about Congressman Ryan's plan, and Congressman Ryan hasn't taken very kindly to that. But when it comes to, you talk about entitlement reform and getting a clamp on spending, have you taken a position, a solid position on Paul's plan, and where do you think that might be headed? Because it doesn't seem like it's going to be given much room for debate in the Senate.
Well, I don't think there'll be a budget this year arrived at. The House has passed one. I don't think the Senate will pass one, so there won't be any agreed to budget. I personally am going to have an awful hard time voting for any budget that doesn't balance within the decade of the budget you're talking about. And the Ryan budget doesn't do that. He's a really good guy with a great commitment to try to take on some big issues. But there's a budget that doesn't balance in 10 years. I think we've got to do better than that, and I hope that we find the kind of leadership.
Can you do that though in 10 years without raising taxes?
What?
Can you do that without raising taxes within 10 years?
Sure you can. Raising the rate of raise revenues to create more taxpayers. And so back to target one, private sector job creation. If we're not talking about that and what you do to stop spending, we're talking about the wrong things. And more taxpayers pay more taxes, and we need to be doing the things that encourage people like that business guy you were talking to take that chance and take that risk and create jobs rather than constantly be throwing things out there that make them hesitate.
And they're out there.
That's what
That's
we
right.
got right now.
I
Lots
agree
of
with
hesitation.
You. And you're absolutely right, because there are people out there more than just the person that I'm speaking of. Senator, it's great to have you back on. We'll talk soon.
Talk to you. Look forward to seeing you soon.